Hello, fellow pit ponies, and welcome to our special bonus episodes that we've put together for your pleasure, which capture those beautiful moments at the end of our episodes, in which our guests share with you the magical experiences they've enjoyed since leaving the classroom. We refer to them affectionately as the sliding doors stories. The stories are different, unique, and incredibly powerful, and serve as an inspiration to us all. So on behalf of myself and Sarah, enjoy. Rae Dillon, classroom teacher to copywriter. Sliding doors story.
Well, I mentioned earlier that since coming back to the UK, I've got married. So we got married in September 2022 in Bora Bora, French Polynesia. And of course, if I was a teacher, there's no way I could have done that.
Well, what date did you get married?
It is the 9th of the 9th, 2022.
So the chances are the 9th of the 9th could have been an inset day. So
in class, yeah. Probably would have been in school. So
Friday and you're on the beach. It sounds absolutely beautiful. Hannah Jones, classroom teacher to head of prison education, England and Wales. Sliding door story.
Okay, so this one is maybe going to be a slightly longer one than others have done. And I will give a bit of a content warning for any listeners that I will be talking about cancer. So, as I said, I'm a carer to my son and I share that responsibility with my husband, my dear husband, who is only the same age as me, so mid-30s, young and healthy and fit. And through COVID, started having back pain and went to the GP a number of times, but it was, you're sitting on the wrong chairs, and we were, because suddenly he had to start working from home. He was working at a dining room table. So we spent money and got him proper chair and desk and rising desk, etc. We moved up to Yorkshire and the pain was getting worse. So I think kind of like another mental strain I had through the time I was at school was this kind of beginning of shift of my relationship with my husband, where he was just in pain, this kind of like constant discomfort, and his mood was starting to change. When I started at the civil service, so I started in May 2022, he'd been in significant pain for a while. I'd nearly rang an ambulance for him in March 2022, but it was around the time where they were saying if you ring an ambulance, you might be, in an ambulance bay for like 48 hours while we wait for you to go to hospital. It was all through this time, and I thought, he'll never forgive me. He's in so much pain. If he's stuck in an ambulance for 40 hours, he'll never forgive me. And I didn't. But the GP finally referred him for an MRI after agreeing it might be something more, more than just sitting on the wrong chair. So he had his MRI just before I started the civil service in August. So I was, May, June, July, August. I was 4 months in. So it's a 6-month probation. In August bank holiday, we were down with his parents and we got a phone call on the Friday afternoon just before bank holiday weekend to say, we've looked at your MRI and we can see that there's a slipped disc. And we were like, almost we were a bit disappointed, because he'd been in so much pain that we were thinking, surely like that's not going to be the level of pain you're in, but hey, maybe it just is. I was thinking like, bloody men, it's a slipped disc. And he's just like, at this point, like he wasn't sleeping, he was like losing weight, his hair was falling, like he was so ill with this pain. And anyway, on the Tuesday morning, we were just packing up to go back home. And on the Tuesday morning, we had another phone call, and it was the same GP. And she said, I'm really sorry. The MRI report was sent in 2 parts, and I read the top, and it was done in 2. And she said, I just read the top, and the top does show a slip disc, but it shows a slip disc because there's a well, they never said the word tumor. They said mass, a lesion that essentially was pushing his disc out. So the top MRI did show a slip disc, but the bottom MRI showed why. That was the beginning of our cancer journey. And it took a while for diagnosis, and it took a while for, because he's got a very, 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 and had a very, very, very rare form of bone cancer. So this is, in terms of my career, I'm 6 months into the civil service and dealing with this news. I'd taken a pay cut. So I started at SEO level at the civil service, which is senior executive officer level, which actually is a really good entry grade for the civil service and does pay well. And I'd recommend any teacher to enter into, that grade or HO are really good entry grades and still pay fairly amount. But it was less than I was being paid as a teacher. And his salary was what we lived off, and we just bought our kind of forever home in Yorkshire, and we'd taken out a huge whacking great mortgage to have this with. Ironically, to afford the mortgage, we'd also cancelled our critical care cover that would have paid off our mortgage had one of us got cancer, because we'd said to each other jokingly, we're only in our mid-30s, like how likely is it that we'll get cancer? So we'd cancelled our critical care cover because that was really expensive. So he got in September, we were sent down to Birmingham, back to Birmingham for no link in terms of because we used to live there, just because that was the centre. We were sent down to Birmingham, and we were told it was likely to be malignant cancer. They were very worried about it being malignant cancer. And the way that they diagnose sarcoma, which is bone cancers, is that they start with they take a biopsy, and then they start kind of profiling it against the most common, and there's about 100 types, and so it can take about a week if it's one of the more common ones, or it can take a few weeks if it's one of the less common ones. And it was, for us, it took weeks, because it was one of the least common cancers. He's got a type of cancer called mesenchymal chondrosarcoma, which is a very rare cancer, a very aggressive cancer. We were given this news in October. So I just about passed my probation period with my team, and we were told that he was going to need a life-altering surgery. We didn't know kind of to what extent that life would be altered. We were told it'd be a life-altering surgery, and then we were told with a likely need to have 9 months of chemo and radiotherapy following that. So we were kind of going into Christmas 2022 with that knowledge. So he had his surgery booked for the end of November 2022. So at this point I've been there 6 months. He was down in Birmingham. The surgery was very dangerous. I didn't know this. I've never seen it, but he filmed like a goodbye to me and my children before, because we didn't know how that was going to go. My line manager, but I was still in teaching mode, right? So I said to my line manager, well, he's having his surgery on the Wednesday, so I'll take Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off, and I'll see you on Monday. And she just said, if you need to work, I'll see you on Monday. But otherwise, come back and see me in January, and we'll see how you are. And without any question, she just signed me off on full pay for 5 weeks, and I'd only been there for 6 months. I'd only just passed my probation, and she just said, "Don't worry about it." She said, "If you want to log on and work because that's good for you, then do. But just come back and see me in January." And obviously, I couldn't work, and he was really ill after the surgery, and we had a rough few weeks. And I was just so grateful that I was not having to worry about cover lessons. And so he came home, and we got home just before Christmas, and we had the weirdest Christmas. All his family came, and they all cooked and kind of celebrated as you can. He doesn't remember any of it because he was on so many pain meds. But we got through. On Boxing Day, we went to Leeds Sarcoma Centre, where they were going to do his chemotherapy, and they told us that we needed to have the full 9-month regime, and they were going to give him, for those who know about cancer, they were going to give him the doxorubicin, which is called the Red Devil, which is, I think, the most powerful chemo drug there is, and it was going to make him very ill, and he was going to be very immunocompromised. And for me, that's where then the sliding doors moment starts, because straight away, I was due back to work in January, but I was really kind of on and off because I was needing to take him to all these appointments while we kind of got ourselves settled. So there's kind of two big things. One of them was around his health and this immunocompromise. And I remember keep on thinking, what would I have done if I was in school? Because I would have killed him if I'd have gone into school. But then there's no mechanism for me to not have gone into school and still earn money. And he's been off work now from November. This is January. So we're 3 months into his 6 months full pay, sick. He had 5 months full pay. So we were 3 months into his 5 months full pay. Then he was dropping to half pay, then nothing. So I knew we're going to be okay for a few months. We can pay our mortgage and our bills, but I'm going to need to step up and I'm going to need to earn more money now, because otherwise we're going to have to sell this house. And actually when we kind of first got his diagnosis, I was thinking we are going to have to sell this house. There's no other way around it. Like how I've only just started this new career. How can I earn more money? But from the minute I started the civil service, they'd seen me and they'd seen my potential. And from kind of day one, they'd gone, you should have been a grade 7, which is then the next grade above. And it's quite a significant pay jump between SEO and grade 7. It's about a £15,000 pay jump. So it's a huge increase. They're like, why did you come in as an SEO? You should have been a grade 7. So already I had this like positive talk in my head that I was capable of this. And I spoke to my line manager kind of in January. This is after just coming back from, 6 weeks of leave, supporting my husband. And I said, I'm going to need to leave this team because I'm going to need a promotion, because I've got no option. Like I have to earn the money to support my family. We cannot lose our house on top of everything. So in the kind of worst months of my husband's treatment, so he had the doxorubicin. He was on a chemotherapy regime that was 1 week on, 1 week off. So he'd be home for a week. But there was a period through end of January, early February, where his cell counts were so low they didn't let him home, and he'd lost so much weight. They were talking about like feeding him through a tube because he was so poorly. And through that period, I was applying for grade 7 jobs, and my line manager was supporting me every step of the way. She was helping me draft them. She was coaching me for interviews. She was that constant, you're going to be brilliant. You're going to do it. I applied for a lot of jobs. I got 2 interviews. The first interview I missed by 1 mark. It's almost like a test. I missed it by 1 mark. The context in the morning was that was when my husband was in hospital with sepsis. And so I was quite pleased that I'd only missed it by 1 mark, to be honest. And then I got called for a second interview in a different role, and I was not offered the job. I was offered to go back on the reserve list, and the reserve list has come back to save my life again, because, as luck would have it, then my own team had a vacancy for a grade 7. So I was able to stay in the team that had supported me, but as a grade 7. So like for me, my sliding doors moment is, if I was teaching while all this had happened, and if that school hadn't been as bad, so if I'd have managed to stay for a year, we would have been homeless. We'd have been bankrupt. Like, what could we have done? We'd have both had to be signed off work. So my pay would have run out the same time that my husband's pay would have run out. And we'd have had nothing no money that would have supported us. We'd have had to sell our house. We'd have had to move. We'd have probably had to go and live with parents through the worst times of our life. And instead, I am in a career that fulfills me, that really, through some really dark times last year, became like a really positive outlet. I never thought work could be that for me, in a way, because teaching made it so negative towards the end. But it's my positive outlet. Like, I get to direct all my nervous energy into doing good and doing amazing things, and really supporting vulnerable people, and develop myself and have something that gives me something back of who I am and who I was all through that time. And I cannot thank my team and my line managers at the civil service enough for just how they've met me with that flexibility, and with that, we know what you're going through, and that openness to talk about it. But at the same time, without it being, oh, aren't we doing you a favor? It's never been that. It's just been, of course, that's what you need. Of course, that's what you're going to get. Of course, we'll give it to you. So that's my sliding doors. It's not a moment, but that's my sliding doors of life. And it's, so not only did walking out that day save me, but it saved my family, and it saved our house, and it saved our future.
Brief interlude, dear listener. Couple of questions. Are you a tutor or even a pit pony considering tutoring? And do you fancy getting in the room with myself and Sarah Dunwood learning about the wonderful world of tuition? Then why not join us at the National Tutors Conference hosted by Connexus Tuition on the 29th of July 2025. It's at Chesford Grange, Kenilworth. Links to the tickets are in the show notes below, and we will both see you on the other side. Jonny Millard, classroom teacher to managing director, Sliding Doors Story.
Well, there is so many things, I suppose. I mean, we won an award early this year, a local business award. We were the best new business, and that was a wonderful moment. Got a nice little trophy downstairs in our reception. But that actually isn't my moment. My moment is, it's sort of a moment in time, a snapshot in time, I suppose. Something that could never have happened if I was in teaching is in the January of this year, my wonderful partner turned 30. That's in the January. Well, if you're in teaching, you can't go away. And we were able to go to Orlando, Florida, and we spent her 30th birthday in Florida, which we never could have done had I been in teaching. And I've been totally and utterly honest with you. And this is, I've tried my very best not to sound arrogant, but I'm going to say something now that I earn a lot more money than the head teacher who basically told me I was incompetent. So, and I'm on course to make a hell of a lot more money in my life than he probably will ever make. So trust me, we went to Orlando with no budget. We just did what we wanted, when we wanted, how we wanted. And there are certain things we didn't get a chance to do. So we've rebooked to go again in another couple of years for a lot longer period of time. So that's wonderful. But 2 months after we came back, I had been living in my nan and granddad's home, and I was able to buy it. So it's my first home. I bought my first home, and that was in the March of this year. And I'm currently renovating the property. And it's a real privilege to live in that house because my nan and granddad lived in that house since the 60s. And it was a wonderful family home. My mom grew up in that home, and now it's my home. And it's meant that my granddad has had some legacy as well. And I realised one day, I was sort of outside and I was looking at the sky, sort of nice sunny afternoon. And I thought, you could have gone to Orlando, but you couldn't have gone when you did. And you could have bought the house, but you couldn't have done both. There was no way on this earth that you would have been able to afford to go to Orlando, and there's no way you would have been able to have bought a home within a 2-month period of time. And that, for me, as an ambitious person, and look, I know that I don't want to make this all about money. It's not all about money. I am somebody who's driven by success, and I am somebody who's driven by money. That's probably why I was so depressed in teaching, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to have money and get on in life, and obviously I'm being held back. But to get to that point where you can buy your first home and go on holiday and not really care that much about the money, and you can protect and provide for those around you, that was all I ever really wanted. And now I've got it. And to look at the sort of lovely afternoon and go, you're the man, you've done it, man. You are the man. Do you know, and like now I drive a £90,000 car, and I'm on a 6-figure salary, and everything that I knew I deserved, I now have.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the sliding doors stories of our guests. And please remember to subscribe to our channels and follow along for the magical pit pony moments that you will find at the end of our episodes every week. On behalf of myself and Sarah, see you on the other side.